Hey guys, it's two guys T and D here, and we're here to do some more world brewing with a rather special guest. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, I am a special guest. I'm Lloyd, also Yarrow DM on YouTube.
Hey. So right, let's just jump straight into it. I'll give a little sort of primer. So the Iron Kingdoms is a land of hobgoblins. They are very militaristic, and after a few sort of failures in war, they changed from being very traditional to realizing they can't, exist without technology. So they've been sort of going crazy with stealing technology, creating technology, and just going mental with it. So this is a steampunk world. So think sort of Victorian era technology. And yeah, let's just go from there. So Lionel, I think, said something a couple of weeks ago that we should make these guys very sort of Roman in their sort of structure and mentality. So who better to bring than Lloyd?
So you said kingdoms, right?
Yeah, kingdoms.
So I don't know how Roman you want to get, but Romans hated the idea of a king. They always had a lot of pride in their republic until there was an empire. So it might be more interesting rather than a king, which is pretty much a fantasy stable, that they're like a republic with a senate, and it'll make them seem more, especially if they're taking on these new kind of ideas of tech and stuff, it'll make them seem more like less barbaric and insane, and more like organized, structured kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
I agree. I think to like build off of that, because the Romans were the first people culture I thought of. Harry, when you talked to me about the Iron Kingdoms, I said, "Oh my gosh, man, it's like the Romans." But you know what? I think just to play off your idea, Lloyd. So instead of being like the very kind of stereotypical hobgoblins, all we want to do is fight, but they also have pretty refined culture. So not only are they pretty militant in the way they approach problems, but they actually give good things if you're actually subjugated by them. Yeah, you got to follow our rules, and if you're not a citizen of the Iron Kingdom or the Iron Domain, then yeah, you're kind of treated like this third-class citizen. But if you can win citizenship, if you kind of bow to the yoke of their control, you can actually reap the benefits. Like much of the lands that were conquered by Romans, a lot of those really benefited. They brought roads, they brought aqueducts, they brought all these advances that I'm wondering, especially when you say they've just dove right into this technology, Harry. Yeah. So they can bring like this really great stuff. Maybe they're even more advanced in some areas of technology. So they've not only stolen it, but actually advanced it.
So maybe goblins breed at a frightening rate, right? That's one of the things about goblins. So maybe because they have such huge populations, they're actually very good at cities. Like they have like sewage figured out and like running water figured out and like town planning and stuff, which is like a nice kind of reversal of the trope that they just live in caves and like wooden forts. Like because there's so many of them, they figured out a good way of like organizing large settlements and stuff like that.
Yeah, so one of the sort of ideas I had previously, we can throw this out the window though, or change it quite a lot. I don't mind at all. Is that the sort of basic sort of structure of these kingdoms was sort of all centered around the legion. So a legion with a general would rule over a certain province, and each of these would have their own sort of subculture within the sort of hobgoblin culture. I don't know how that sounds to you guys.
I would say that it's less Roman. If Rome was such a monoculture, that everywhere that was Roman was Roman. But I like the idea of like having different all these different generals and stuff. It's definitely interesting. But they could be like governors. And like one of the things that I'd say is that like in Roman cities and settlements and colonies, as long as you paid your taxes, and didn't cause hassle, you were fine. And like maybe they're smart enough to know that it doesn't matter if they like worship hobgoblin gods or elf gods, as long as they're paying the money and they're not causing riots, then it's fine. You know.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, that's probably so the rule. Sort of the areas that they're ruling over are very different from the original lands, but they sort of let it go, but keep their own culture. And I know the Romans liked their sort of uniform structures of armies, but I'm wondering, like, with the addition of magic and sort of various different tactics sort of introduced by the cultures that they're sort of assimilating, would those structures change between generals, do you think? Like one more cavalry based, one more like guns, one more magic?
It usually depended on what they were fighting, and I guess that's the case here as well. Like if they're fighting particularly like swift cavalry based enemies, then they have to change their tactics or whatever. But I would imagine that there's like a base legion that looks the same in every country, you know, and that's like a general, and then like his staff, and then there's probably mages and clerics, and then there's like cohorts, which is like whatever, or counterbalance, which is like 10 men, and then up to a cohort, which is like 100, and then all the way up to, you know, a full size legion. But it's modular, you know, so it's easy for them to send as many men as necessary.
Cavalry units and
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it.
Another thing too is just because the armies of the Iron Kingdoms have embraced technology and everything doesn't mean that they have to. We have to make this big break away from how they utilize their tactics. They would just maybe adjust over time. Like what I'm thinking too is maybe they don't so much use magic, because you know how magic is kind of losing its sway in the lands. So maybe they have like within these units, they have dampeners, like magic dampeners, which allows them to effectively fight against enemies that may use magic. You know, think of some sort of either technology that kind of sends out this pulse, or like an EMP type thing, but for magic. And it either just stuns magically attuned creatures or whatnot. Or maybe they have special units that they're able to target. Oh, there's magic users there, and those are the units that are kind of equipped with this sort of technology, and they just swiftly go in to take these things out.
I like that. There's also in the Volo's guide, there's the iron shadows, which I imagine could be some sort of like magic user assassins, just sort of going in, making a beeline during a battle for these magic users and just taking them out as swiftly as possible.
Yeah, it would literally. It would be to the point, Harry, that you know how sometimes something's notoriety well precedes them. So as armies go up against them, one of the things they would have to weigh is, can we do this? Do we have the skill? And then
is it worth bringing our mages if they're going to get murdered? You know, like these very valuable mages, should we even bring them to this battle? Because I know you know 40K as well, Harry. Like they have psychic blanks in that, like people who like give off an aura where magic doesn't exist, and I think that might be like maybe it's an aberration in the goblin gene or something.
Yes, cool.
I love some of them like don't resonate with magic, and like they give off an anti-magic sort of aura. And maybe they used to kill them. They used to like at birth like kill them, but then they figured out what they were useful for, and now they like try to breed them.
Oh yeah,
yeah, like null weavers or something like that. You know, much like sorcerers are magically magic is innate in them. You have these like null weavers, and their ability is to actually tear the fabric of magic. So as these spells are kind of shot at them, they can actually tear the magic. They can't actually cast magic themselves, but they can see the weave and they can rip it apart, effectively dispelling most magic. Yeah, that's awesome.
And the idea of like, you know, a couple of fireballs like raining down over the Hobgoblin army, and one of these guys just like reaches up and the fireball just fizzles into nothing, and then the mages on the other side are like, what? Very frightening.
Yeah, these powerful war mages would just be like literally their guts would like just turn to liquid as they're like, holy shit.
So it's steampunk. I think there's cannons and the like. Because I reckon that's probably the direction these guys would go. like hobgoblins are big enough to fight humans one-on-one. I think they're strong, and they would keep their infantry, but I feel like maybe, you know, instead of catapults and onagers, they would have cannons and etc.
Definitely. Oh, so one thing I imagined when I first thought of the idea of Romans as my hobgoblins is that, you know, the sort of classic tactic of the infantry moving forward, waiting until the enemy arrived, threw their peeler at them. But instead of that, instead of peeler, it's massive, like, one-shot hand cannons. Just blast them, like 2d12 damage, and then charge in hand-to-hand combat.
Yes, I love that.
That's the kind of thing I want.
So they have these like big, heavy, like almost blunderbuss style.
Something like something
rifles.
like this.
Oh man, yeah.
I think this is from Destiny, but like it could be used as a weapon as well in a pinch, like just
so
massive.
And then like slam their shields onto the ground, pull out these guns, and then when they enemy in disarray, they charge.
Yeah, that's the exact tactic, and they're all just in plate, like full plate, very high AC, very tough to kill. Because they take their military seriously. Every citizen, which is a hobgoblin, so somewhat racially pure, but every one of those is equipped with the best of the best.
You just said something.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you just said something that totally got me conscript. So it's like everyone in the hobgoblin nation in these Iron Kingdoms serves. So everyone like serves in the military for like 2 years of service at least. And at any point after you've served, you can be called back up. So it's like the whole civilization.
Yeah, mandatory training.
Male and female have been trained militarily, at least in some fashion.
Maybe some sort of mix in that sort of Spartan culture of training at an early age.
Mm-hmm.
So you're always a soldier, and you have that secondary profession of, you know, being a baker or whatever. But you're always a soldier first.
So there's like in Rome, you had to serve for 16 years if you signed up, and they would like give you armor and weapons, and you would owe them a debt that you have to like pay back because they gave you the stuff. So I think like that makes a lot of sense. It's assumed that any citizen is going to be in the military, and if they're not, they must be either mega rich, or but I think almost everyone in as a hobgoblin has to. Is there going to be like some sort of caste system where like goblins are lower?
I think goblins would be here as well, and they'd sort of be the auxiliary troops.
Right. There was a tendency in Rome to like take local troops into the army as auxiliaries. So like, you know, if they conquer an elven place, obviously they're going to take those incredibly talented elven archers and put them to use as like part of the tithe. You know, like you pay less taxes, but you provide us with X hundred rangers or whatever. So is that something you think they would do, like conscript other races in?
Yeah, and they'd probably use them as cannon fodder as well. Because, you know, their lives don't matter as much as a hobgoblin citizen, so just send them in.
Where are bugbears in this hierarchy?
You know, I'm not sure. I think they'd be valued for their strength. I'm not sure.
Unexpectedly, so I read a little bit about 3 goblin types before we started this yesterday. Bugbears are supposed to be very sneaky, but they're very talented at stealth missions, despite their huge size. So maybe they have like shock troops or like special agents who are bugbears. Like that's what their role is.
Special forces, yeah.
And then goblins, I guess, are like cannon fodder plus like they're the engineers, maybe. Like
the engineers, the laborers. I love that sort of tinker goblin that you get from places like World of Warcraft. And,
definitely.
Yeah, I love that.
So I know we only lightly touched on like the government structure in the Iron Kingdoms, but I mean I really feel that we should give that some focus. You had talked about the military kind of being in control, but as Lloyd had mentioned, like in a Roman culture, it really is like the Senate. And at least at one point too, there was the triumvirate where there were three that shared equal power, and it wasn't until like Julius Caesar kind of very sneakily kind of who was it, Pompey, and I can't remember the third one. I think one of them died, and it kind of and then all of a sudden he took total power after. They saw him having more influence because of his success as a general, so that was threatening to them. But I wonder.
lots of, like, the triumvirate is that the players have options of who to play against each other, you know, like rather than like there's one unified, like they are unified, but there's still factions within the Hobgoblins is nice, you know.
Yeah,
right.
Like Senate is also nice because there's different politicians and different factions within the Hobgoblins, you know.
Right. Like maybe there's one Senate, but there's these three power bases within the Iron Kingdoms. And each of these great leaders comes from that, and then there's like a capital where the Senate actually sits. There's supposed to be, it's almost like this shared power between the Senate and these three. But one of the things is there could be these very nuancy type things and questions like, well, truly, are they in charge, or is the military in charge in certain areas? You know, you had mentioned like more being the outskirts areas. Who really has more power, the regional governor appointed, or is it this centurion who leads these three legions, or I'm not as familiar with the rank hierarchy in the Roman legions, but this guy that actually leads the 7th Legion, which is like, you know, it's got cannon, it's got special forces, it's got null weavers. Who's truly in power? Who's truly in power here? If there's like a headbutting.
Yeah, like one of the things that like how Caesar became so powerful is that his legions were more loyal to him than they were to Rome, like to the idea of the nation. And that's like something they had to constantly balance in Rome. Like when you're campaigning with this general for 8 years and he makes you rich beyond your wildest dreams, like you're going to feel a lot of love for that guy as opposed to the nation, you know? So it's interesting to think about.
Especially when he brings so more of you home than not. Like not a general that just throws you away and lets you die, you know, uselessly. But he actually brings more of you home with more reward and more victory. I see the culture as being very steeped in like honor. You know, that's really important. Sure. So even when there's like some backstabbing or whatever, it's like, it's almost like a lawful evil kind of way. It's all within the scope of the law.
Yeah, I mean, it's very totally lawful. Like there's no, like, I don't know if you ever watched the gift game that we played with Andrew Knapp, but like that was, we were all lawful evil, and it was like there was conniving, but there was also honor involved. And it was about strength, you know, like if the person above you isn't strong enough to lead, then it's your responsibility to make sure that they're not leading anymore. Right.
It would be like this thing. And some leaders would actually recognize that, like, I can no longer lead, and they would step down, and others would just vainly hold on to it. And that's when you would see these very small skirmish type civil wars, which are maybe just accepted in that society. It's not seen as chaos. It's not seen as some big upheaval. It's just that he just wouldn't give up the power that he should. And everyone else is just like, well, they did what they were supposed to do.
It's like a natural strengthening of the society, or like a culling of the weak kind of.
Oh, yeah.
So what do you think? Like a republic, a senate, a confederacy, something like that?
Yeah, I'm leaning more on towards the sort of republic with a senate rather, as opposed to just an empire with a emperor and the senate's there just to show. No, I think the senate should be a big part with. I think I'm not sure about whether the generals. I think the generals do have a seat on the senate, right? In
yeah, so mostly. Generals would have been members of the Senate, like rich patricians, like people of extreme wealth who would like do military service because it would help their political career, because it was a military nation. So you would assume that most of the generals would either be in the Senate or like trying to be in the Senate. Particularly like the higher generals, like your Caesars and stuff, they would have been consul, which is the highest rank you get to in Rome, which is like the two people who like run or like make the executive decisions for whatever amount of years.
Consuls.
Yeah. There's lots of ranks within the Senate, which all sound really gnarly. There's like praetor and aedile and all that sort of stuff. It sounds really great, and they're really useful names for various ranks that you can give people.
Yeah, I think you definitely should adopt the rank structure that the Romans used, because like you said, Lloyd, it just sounds really damn cool. Yep. Another thing too, because strength comes through unity, I would see them doing a very similar thing that the Romans did. They wanted strength of their people. So like when any like hobgoblin is born with any kind of deformity or anything, and this is probably why they were destroying null weavers at the beginning. And I don't know if you want to call them that, but like anyone that is like, you know, like a runt sickly or whatever, they just kind of walk them. They just kind of the parent is expected just to kind of walk them out. Like I think they like have this hill, or there'd be this one place in each community where they would just leave these babies to die. And that's what they would do. And because, like you said, Lloyd, they repopulate very quickly. So they would just say, we got to thin the herd in order to stay stronger. So I think that would be just a really gnarly piece.
Very, very Spartan. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that makes room for like factions within who hate that practice, who like just love their children and like hide them. Or like maybe there are hobgoblins or other races even living near that hill that like watch for the hobgoblins come and take the babies and take care of them. Something like that could be good for intrigue.
Yeah, some like wilder tribes or something that are like made up of these when you mention the caste system, kind of like these untouchables.
For sure.
Like leper colonies or whatever, that they like the Romans established these leper colonies, and they would kind of shuttle everybody off, the sickly. All right, you guys all go live over here.
I like that.
So Rome had a fascination with symbols, and particularly the eagle. Like a legion would have a standard, and it would be this huge pole with like a golden eagle on the top, and it was like considered like the worst possible situation if that was taken. Mm-hmm. And I think that makes a lot of sense here as well. Like symbolism is really important, superstition is really important, but it probably wouldn't be an eagle, right? It would be something else.
Yeah, something more fantastical, like a griffin or a dragon or something like that. Something that shows strength and power. Definitely.
Well, Harry, one of the things is a few weeks ago we did that collab with Drake where we looked at that swamp. Is it Abba? Asa Swamp. Remember, there's 2 dragons in there, so it might make sense. Maybe they would choose one of these dragons, whichever one they thought were more powerful, like the black dragon, and it would be this black kind of coiled serpent on this standard.
With that though, the black and green dragons, which are in Asa, they're not exactly that honorable or lawful. They're a bit more chaotic, and they like to backstab each other. And I don't think that wouldn't really fit with the aesthetic of having that honor and strength and lawfulness.
Are you using Forgotten Realms gods?
No, but I haven't done much on the Pantheon.
Because hobgoblins are associated with Bane, who's like the gnarliest fucking god ever, who just has like this like fucking closed fist as a symbol, and goblins worship what's his dumb name, Maglubia, and he's like an exarch of Bane, but I feel like they would worship the actual top level god. So maybe Romans were incredibly religious. That was a huge part of their life. So there's like a god of gods and then a god of war, and those would be the 2 particularly that the legions adore, and probably the only ones that non-hobgoblins would know about.
Yeah.
Like basically your Jupiter and your Mars. So maybe that's your Bane and your Maglubia or whatever you want to say.
Yeah, definitely. I'll think of some names. They're not too important, but yeah, I definitely want to bring in that sort of religion into it, because that's a very important part of Roman society, especially that reverence to Mars, especially for the soldiers, was very, very important.
Like Mars is a nasty god, like the god of war is not a good guy. He's got a coat made of skins and like not a good dude, but they still worship him because that's how they win.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was looking it up. So yeah, Maglubia. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
I'll make it easier to pronounce in this one.
Yeah.
His symbol is a bloody axe, so that's pretty.
Yeah.
Cool.
Why am I failing? There we go. Yeah. So yeah, there's lots of really cool sort of inspiration, which I think in Volos, which you can sort of go off with, especially with the bugbear stuff, which I think I like the idea of having them as special forces. I don't know where they sort of fit in within the general society, though.
Like from what I gather, like they're also very clever. They're just like, I kind of see the goblins in D&D as like orcs in Warhammer, where the bigger they get, the better they are. Like they get smarter, they get tougher, they get quicker.
They have better gear. They They live
So
longer,
maybe
obviously, because
maybe they're like rare, like bugbears aren't born as often, and maybe they're born to hobgoblin parents. And it's like a blessing. It's like oh wow, this is like a chosen child. They're born as like a
yes.
special event, and maybe they're like religious leaders, or maybe they're the ones who are born with magic or something. But like they should be more unusual,
the no
Bam, yeah,
ones are like the bugbears, because you know how they're naturally stealthy and stuff too.
Yeah.
So that's why they would just naturally fit. That is a great idea. It's very similar. I think there's an orc. Like
There is an orc. Yeah, I do.
It's like that too. It's very rare. And when they're born, it's like they're just revered by all the other orcs within the tribe. But I really like that, taking hobgoblins, taking bugbears and making them, kind of unique to your world. That's really awesome.
It just seems like, because otherwise, they would be on the top, and then like I think hobgoblins are a better fit anyway for like the legions and stuff. So then if you want to make bugbears, you can make them this like unusual sort of blessing that they receive. And maybe like they're not allowed to go into politics, but they're like used for special purposes, like I said, like magic, or like not opposite magic or whatever else.
Sort of, given this sort of highly revered place in society, but they're sort of so important they're just needed for the military and nothing else. But that's like
but they also like live this life without want,
Yeah, for sure. Like I love that idea that they have in 40K where people who are psychic blanks are like horrible to be around because they don't have a soul, right? So everything, like it makes you sick to look at them. There's this awful feeling when you're near them. So maybe the bugbears have that, but because they have that power, everyone has to be nice to them, like even though it kills them,
Oh yeah.
Right, and like any bugbear, like anyone, they're individual in the sense that you'll have some that that you really hold up, and you're like, oh, this, even though it's kind of disconcerting about what they can do and whatnot, but they're still held up. But then you have others that just abuse that power, and they become despots themselves in some fashion, and I think that just creates that intrigue that we talked a little bit about.
Yeah. Especially if they're holy, like if they're religious symbols, some of them might begin to think that they are sons of gods or something, and they start to lead people in nasty directions.
Yeah, like a was it Nero complex kind of a thing. As the city burns around me, I'm just like partying.
I love that.
Yeah, that is that, and that right there is why we collaborate, because awesome ideas like that come out.
Awesome ideas come from other people.
For sure.
That's what I said. Awesome ideas come from people other than us.
So how long have they been an empire? What stage are they at? How much have they conquered?
Let me find my map.
I'm gonna shoot from the hip on this one, Lloyd. From what I remember from Harry's map, it's still in development, but it's a pretty good chunk of the Eastern Kingdom. Now there's this forest that is slowly growing, which is part of this. I think it's like it's one of the borders, right? Isn't it the western border?
It's changed around slightly.
Okay.
So if I just do I'm just drawing a quick outline of their sort of kingdom in pen. Right.
One of the things we're going to do this year, Harry, is you and I are going to put a little coin aside, and we're going to actually get a commission so that we can get your map drawn for your.
I'll make you a map.
Actually decided,
20 minutes. Send me a sketch drawing, and I'll make it for you in like no time.
There we go.
All right. So this isn't like fully decided upon yet, but this is certainly more. Oh god, my sketch is falling apart. Right. I don't know if you can see the pencil very well. So basically, the area in blue is the extent of their empire. So you've got the swamp here. Pretty sizable, yeah. The swamp is here. The sort of big forest is here. And the rest of the sort of, these are sort of like the more Victorian and Russian sort of areas that I've sort of based there.
Slavic and Euro.
Yeah, and then here is where the sort of Wild West kind of frontier land. And then down here is mainly unexplored. There's a desert here.
So there are no empires next to this empire?
I haven't actually decided yet. There
Okay.
probably could be not. So that's probably why they've expanded quite a lot, I think.
Like if the West is not heavily like if there's a Wild West area there and like unexplored areas, then there's nothing stopping them going further. And there's
other than that forest, which is very, very deadly.
So just devil's advocate here, if I'm a hobgoblin general, I see a forest in a way, I just burn it.
You're going to struggle with that with this forest, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah,
magical.
Okay.
That's what we brewed last time with Mike.
That's where my immediate head was. I'm like, okay, this is my way, I'll just burn it.
Yeah.
So what it is, it's actually a sentient forest, and it's actually slowly growing. So what I see is maybe the Iron Kingdoms, they actually keep it at bay. Like they're constantly like cutting back this forest to keep it from moving further into their lands. But I also think too, so it's a really big area, but it doesn't necessarily mean that was originally how big they were. They've probably subjugated many other civilizations over the decades and centuries. So we could actually you could weave in.
When I do this more in detail, I need to sort of purchase myself a graphics tablet again because mine broke. Otherwise, I just do this myself properly. But split up the regions to sort of the subjugated lands, and then the central like Rome area, whatever I'll end up calling it, is probably on the coast.
I think you need to find out where the capital is, and then pick your other 3 points of power, and then you could then spread out from that. The rest would be like
so there'd be like the Western governor, the Southern governor, and then the central governor.
Yeah, and those are called something dramatic, Primarch, or something suitably dramatic.
Suitably dramatic and over the top. And then I think the lands to the south would probably have some sort of fairly strong countries, and that would sort of maybe occasionally coalition together to sort of fight back these hobgoblins, which is why they're sort of maybe struggling to expand quite a bit, which is why they're going through this development of technology to help them subjugate more and more.
What if, just an idea as to why they're not expanding right now, what if they recently took the lands that they're at the western extent, and so they're just going to, like, they have this policy where they stop for 50 years or something and like consolidate and make sure everything's like clean and everything works. Exactly. And then once that's all ready and they have citizens there, then they can start moving again.
Oh yeah, I definitely like that. I do have one idea in the world which is coming to fruition. Is I think they are gearing up to go on their next war, but with this time they're gearing up to go against the. There's on this side here, that's all sort of one empire that's fairly technologically advanced and strong, and they sort of have colonies sort of all around here, which aren't marked on, but they're sort of the next greatest power which can take on the hobgoblins, not by numbers, but just sheer technology. It's sort of, I imagined, so I think the reason why the Iron Domain is going sort of crazy with that technology is because they lost a few sort of humiliating wars with the with Newcomen, the Empire Newcomen. So I sort of had the mind of, the Opium Wars between the United Kingdom and China.
Yeah.
That sort of humiliating loss, where it's, the United Kingdom had, steam-powered boats and way better technology. The Chinese were fighting back in junks. I mean, it wasn't a fair contest. So they've sort of realized they need to sort of, keep up. Otherwise, they're going to be left behind.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
So yeah, I need to get around and actually make this map. But I keep on adding on extra bits and bobs, which sound interesting. So
that's the problem with making a map. I'm the same way. I'm like, ooh, what about another thing over here?
Yeah, exactly. I want some more islands. I want, Well,
that's what's so great about world building is that so you're just developing this one area of your world, Harry. But there's nothing to say that there's not like 5 other continents that have.
Well, there is definitely at least 2 other continents which are going to be discovered soon enough. in the timeline.
Right. So Harry, is there anything else that you think, or that we need some help from the illustrious Mr. Jarl?
So I think we've got military, we've got government, we've got a bit on the culture, some religion in there as well.
Well, how about arts?
Good start.
How much focus do they have in the arts? I mean, it's music, sculpture, paintings, poetry. Yeah. How much of a focus is that in this culture?
What if there's like a drive for perfection, to be the best at whatever they try to do?
Yeah, because I think
best for it.
Right, because I think the thought would be it's all or nothing. Like, we got to be militaristic, and that's it, and that's all we do. And you had mentioned Spartan, where it's like nothing. But maybe this is a culture that actually embraces everything, and I like that, Lloyd. It's like literally we're good at everything we do, or don't do it. Like, if I want to be a sculptor, Dad, I want to be a sculptor. You cannot sculpt, son. Sorry, you're going over here, and that's really what it is. You do what you're good at. So those folks that are really good at in the arts are promoted to do so.
You guys have played Dragon Age, I assume. They have the Kunari or whatever, and they're at birth, they're like given a job based on what they would be good at. So maybe there's something a bit like that, where you're like, it's decided when you're young what you're good at, and then you spend your whole life doing that one thing and being the best at it.
Yeah. So So imagine you'd just get career soldiers, which is just in it for the long haul. You'd get, ones that are soldiers, but also they spend the rest of their time, doing sculpting or building or designing new structures. Like, yeah, it's definitely interesting.
One of the things that's so great about the Kunari from Dragon Age, they're like one of my favorite innovations in recent ever, is that like they don't care about themselves, and they just care about the nation,
Yes.
So that they're just like a part of this bigger thing. Like, that maybe contradicts with like the scheming and stuff, but maybe that's useful. Maybe it's more useful to have them all just be like this, like almost alien, like not understandable, just like crazy nationalistic to the point of like they don't care about themselves.
That would be definitely interesting. And perhaps like that scheming would come from somebody who thinks, the sort of, they want to change how it's run because they think the sort of nation will benefit from their leadership or something like that. That's where this sort of scheming comes from. It's all about making the nation better, not so much personal power and gain. Yeah,
because I think like selflessness is like really hard for players to understand. They're selfish, Like they want loot and they want glory. So like when you face these bad guys who like hold the line to the very end, and there's no like pleading, and when they're captured, it's like, just kill me. I don't matter. That's like much more impressive, kind of.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that's a good place to start, and I can take that. And this is definitely a very cool place, and it'll be very cool to do one shots as Hobgoblins. I think definitely. I have so many ideas for one shots and not enough time to run them all.
Yep, that's existence.
That's good. That means that Harry, you always have that. You have that burning desire.
Yeah.
You just gotta pick and choose what you want to actually run.
And there I am, like today, running something that's not even related to this world. Just
Shame on you, Harry. Shame on you.
Just because I had an awesome idea. So, oh well. Right. Yeah. So I think that'll do for now. Thanks very much for joining us, Lloyd. That was great to have you on.
Pleasure.
So
oh,
definitely. So yeah, join us again next week for whatever we decide to do 5 minutes before. All right. Yeah. Thanks very much for tuning in, guys.